Okay. So you can see everything, right?
Yes. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
So we can start.
Yeah.
So how much time do I actually have now?
You have 30, 45 minutes, including questions, but people
Okay.
are not too chatty. But so you have
Okay.
30, 45.
These are many slides. Don't like it's not important that you get like every like and that you understand every of the slides. It's more important that you get this general story. And Philippe, if you see that something has been like already touched a lot, just tell me, and then I will just proceed. And if you have any questions, you can ask them right away, or we can do that at the end. Everything is fine. It's more to give you an insight how we see it. So it's more the dialogue is, I think, is more important, so we can jump in at any time, and it's not important that we're not making all the slides. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, so it's not. Oh, interesting. Why is this thing coming up?
We lost you. We lost your screen at least.
Okay.
So you might have to share it again.
Oh, that's the reason why it came up. Interesting. Okay. So I will try to share the desktop again. If that doesn't work, I will share not the desktop, but I will share the presentation.
Okay. You are back again.
Okay. So you see my screen now?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay, so first have a look at what actually software business is about, because we will talk about, as I said, open source as a business opportunity. So for that, we will first look at software business. So software is becoming more and more essential for everything, not only for software business in the traditional way, but also for hardware, for devices, for everything. For example, in the automotive area, 90% of the innovations, for example, in here, are supposed to be coming from software part. Of course, it is the close combination and all the knowledge that is getting into the software about the hardware and the physical things. So it's coding the physical things, but it is still done in software. So that said, it's not astonishing that like you see this kind of statements all over the industrial companies, that every industrial company will become a software company. That is from General Electric, but for example, our CEO is also emphasizing how important software is, and you can hear it nearly from every industrial company that software is becoming more and more important. But what does that actually mean, software, like the software company, software business? And that's the interesting thing, because when you look at like the software companies, the big IT giants, and what is going on there, you see, for example, things like that the software itself, the price for software, when you look at it like lines of code or how much effort you have to put into software development, and then what you get back for in terms of money is actually declining more and more, and you see it's like going to close to zero compared to all the lines of code that you have to deliver to your customers. So software as a product is actually in a way becoming hard to sell. But on the other hand, you see things like cloud, you see websites, apps, you see web services, you see a lot of different things that are closely connected to everything, and that you provide that more and more companies provide a certain functionality, and this functionality is somehow encoded with software or like done with software, but that is not what people are buying any longer. People are buying actually functionality that is delivered to them in a, let's say, in the best possible way. So you don't want to, for example, sometimes you, like in the past, you had to do all the integration by yourself, and that is getting more and more out of fashion. Like things, frameworks like apps, frameworks like, for example, Android SDK or iOS. You know, you're not responsible for all the integration. You just say, I want to have this functionality, and then it's magically coming to your device, and then on your device, it will update automatically, even without you knowing that, during the night while you're sleeping. And then if there's a problem, you're expecting that this is being fixed in the background, and you're not even somehow have to do anything. And so it's more and more getting away from the software, from the code, and getting more closer to just, you want to have a certain functionality, and you want to have this functionality without any troubles and with total peace of mind. So you want to have the full package. And the software in that is becoming less and less important, at least for the end customers. So when you look, for example, at the stock market, companies that have that followed this new paradigm that had actually been introduced like a long time ago. Many of the IT giants have stated that as around the year 2000. Like I think right after, or some even before the .com bankruptcies, like where all the IT companies went down in the stock market to a large extent. So when you look at the stock markets, I just chose the time after the .com bankruptcies time. So 2001 from 2013. When you look at these companies, the one that managed well to get this done, get this delivered, like software as a service, software like in way that they're, for example, just doing productization of software that they haven't even wrote by themselves, for example, like Red Hat to a large extent. Or like Google, that are just delivering certain functionality. These are the ones that are like best performing, and the ones that have, for traditional reasons, have been in this area of software as a product and licensing business, which also proclaimed already in the year 2000, for example, Microsoft said they want to get into a business subscription model, and they want to move from like the license model to subscription models. And they said that with their .NET initiative, that they want to move away from the license business and want to get into the subscription business. So that's in the service business, software as a service. But like these companies, like Microsoft, Oracle, they are actually the ones that haven't performed that well, and the ones that are like pushed more into the software as a service business. They performed quite well. And then when you look at it, like Apple, the one that I think performed the best in this area, they actually made it possible that all things are integrated together. They're selling hardware, software, and at the same time in one ecosystem, and make sure that all these things work together. The interesting thing is, for example, that all the software that Apple is selling are actually just working on their devices. And they are also in things like app stores and things like that are also certain kinds of services. So the actual IT companies try to get out of this software as a product business and try to get into the software as a service business that is scaling much better and is like fulfilling the expectations of the customers much more. And that is the thing that needs to be understood when we are talking about, you know, like the industrial companies need to become software companies. The software as a product business models are actually getting out of fashion, and the service-based products are on the rise. And that's important to understand when you're looking at open source software. Getting the software for your service is actually then what you need. You're getting into a different role. You're getting, as a company, into the consumer role. You need software to provide your product to the customers, which is a service. And then you're suddenly in a different perspective. Then you're looking at things, okay, I don't want to write it by myself because it's not important for my customer. It's not important that the software is coming from me. It's important that everything works. So then you're looking around. That's the first thing when you're like talking to your development people and to your architects and things like that, say, hey, I need the software. I don't care where it's coming from. It needs to be legal. It needs to be high quality, and it needs to work properly. But I need to provide this service. And then you're looking at things like GitHub, where you have 57 million repositories, like that's the equivalent to software components out there that you can take and use it. 20 million users, 10.7 million active issues, and 331,000 active organizations. 1 million pull requests, which is like the contributions from outside of the projects that have been put there. So when you look at these numbers, there is a huge amount of software and components out there that are free of charge as long as you're following the license, the open source licenses. And that is what you actually have to face. So when you're trying to sell software as a product, that is your biggest competitor. All this software that is coming for free from the open source communities. On the other hand, it's a huge challenge to get all this software together that you need. Sometimes in one product, it's thousands of components, and make sure that they work together all the time for the entire time that they're used. Not only at the beginning when you're selling the license, but for the entire time while the user is using it. And software, there you can see studies that actually the initial writing of the software is sometimes only 10% of the total cost of software. So the effort that needs to be done to provide your service to your customers actually moving away to a large extent from writing certain kind of software to making sure that the software is exactly behaving as expected through the entire time as a service. So open source has become, in this situation, a tool to reach your business goals. So when you need to have the software for your service, you just take whatever you find, but when you don't find what you need, you have to do a different approach. And in many cases, it doesn't make sense that you're writing the software by yourself on your own behind closed doors, but open up for other companies to make a collaboration between them. So it's an agile collaboration. That is what you actually gain. That's the stuff on the right side. It's an agile collaboration. It's increasing quality because you're collaborating with a lot of other people together and they're all looking on the code. You gain speed because you're making a lot of progress compared to if you would just do it behind closed doors, because you're getting all the input from everyone. You share the risk, you reduce the cost, you minimize the dependency on the supplier. Instead of buying it from someone else, you're just in the process of developing it by yourself. Because it's for free, you can download it, everyone can use it. So you have like viral marketing, you establish a new market with that, because when you're successful, you're getting a platform that everyone can use, and by that you're doing a de facto standardization. So what typically companies are doing, that is on the left side, is they partition the software that is needed for the service in differentiating and non-differentiating. And when you look at most of the software, most of it is commodity. It's the non-differentiating part. And it's also important that you understand, it's important that you identify the point in time, the relevant point in time to look at. And that is typically when you're competing with other companies. And that is not, when you're having the idea, that is actually when you're finally have a product as a service out there that is then like accepted by others, and then competition is coming in. That is sometimes years from the point away when you're actually having the idea. And then you take that part that is commodity and you develop it with others in a shared development model. That could be a consortium, or that could be like just like some partners, or that could just be open source. And if you're not doing this, then you might be in big trouble, because actually you are having you don't have all the advantages on the right side, but you have all the disadvantages that you're just on your own. So it's more expensive to develop that software. There's a higher risk. You have to take much more effort to get it into the market, all these things. So it is a competitive advantage to share the commodity. And it doesn't bring you any benefit if you're not doing this. Only the differentiating parts of the software, that is interesting to have them on your own and you have a monopoly in it. But you always have to be aware what is today differentiating might not be differentiating in 3 years. So when you compare all these things together, all these different approaches, so you need your software, you need to have it. And then you compare these different possible approaches, either internal development, or you buy a third-party proprietary software, or you develop it together with someone else in a consortium, or you do it open source. This is like a possible this is like a possible comparison between the different modes of procurement. So you see, like the pluses are positive, the minuses are negative, and the neutral things are the gray ones. And this is not true for everything. This is not true for every situation, but it is true for many situations, and that's what you need to get for it. So you need to closely investigate what is the situation in the very special case, and what is the situation there, and how would it look like? How much would the real cost be, and the real benefits and like disadvantages be for this different ways of doing it? And for this here, I just want to describe, for this scenario, like the idea is actually that you're, instead of doing 100% costs for the development by yourself, when you're doing it open source, you come to 30%. As I said, this needs to be really calculated through in a real scenario, but this is just to give you an idea and an image. So how would that be? So that's the biggest problem actually with open source, because at the beginning, actually you have to invest more. You have to get over 100% effort. At the beginning, you need to invest 120% effort. And that is like in the initiating phase, when you're actually trying to recruit other partners. There you need to do much more than you would have done if you would just develop this by yourself. And then over time, when you're successful with getting your partners, which is not given naturally, sometimes it doesn't work. But then you have another problem anyway. But if you're successful with recruiting other partners, you're getting slowly your costs down. And hopefully then you're actually getting to this 30% that I was talking about. But that will take a while, so many companies already lose patience in the first phase. They're saying, hey, we're investing more and we don't getting anything back out of it. So that doesn't make any sense. Or they're not spending enough time on recruiting the partners and all these things. And that is actually the real problems with the open source development. So that's sad. So that was, okay, how do I get the software for my service? Because the service is actually what I'm selling. So now you are in a competing world, and in a competing world, we have a different situation. We have a situation that actually ecosystems are competing against each other. So you don't have a value chain, you have an ecosystem. The biggest difference between the ecosystem and the value chain is that in an ecosystem, it is rather complex. And so first, before an ecosystem can prosper and be successful, like the different parts need to be there, that's one thing. But on the other hand, when the ecosystem is dying or not working out, it doesn't matter how successful you're inside this ecosystem, you will die with it. So you have to make sure that the ecosystem is working, that this is prospering, and then inside this ecosystem you can earn and you can earn a lot of money and be successful. but the ecosystem needs to be successful first. And so what does that mean? For example, in the IoT area means that you have, in 2020, there's the estimate that there will be 4.5 million developers in the IoT area. 4.5 million. So in order to have a successful ecosystem, you have to convince this a large part, let's say something like 50% of this 4.5 million developers, that this is the right way to go. That is the big question. How can you convince something like 2 million developers that this is the right way to go? And for that, open source is actually a great tool. Because there are companies out there that would invest billions, several billions, two-digit billions of dollars into something like IoT. And you have to ask yourself, can you compete against these companies? And if not, that means you're one of the small fishes. One of the small fishes that will for sure be eaten on the way in the next 5 years by one of the big fishes. And so if you're one of the small fishes, the only way that you can survive is actually building a swarm. And building a swarm just means that you're like joining together and develop together and making a technology successful, building up an ecosystem, and this ecosystem then will be successful. And actually what open source is about, building a big ecosystem that is successful. And so what does that mean for IoT? And that is the thing that I want to talk about in particular here, because that's the natural domain for Bosch. We built a lot of different devices. For example, this drilling machine. We have this situation here that this needs to be, we don't want it to be stolen, lost, or forgotten somewhere, because it's more than $600, 600 euros. And so there is like the IoT service that's called Track My Tool, just making sure that this is not happening. And then you have the situation that like these parking spaces are not available, and people are driving in average something like more than 4.5 kilometers to find a parking space. There are solutions for that as well. This is like a little device that is detecting if there is a car standing above it in a parking space. And there are also cars, of course, and that's like our domain at Abstacle. They will be connected in the future. But for Bosch in general, it means we have 1 million devices that we are producing every day. And there are many, many different domains, and these devices are supposed to work together with different devices from different companies, because that is what the customers expect. So we need a platform, we need an IoT platform that is actually working together. What we currently have today is that you have all the devices in the bottom, and these are just one device from one vendor of one type. And they are working together then with an IoT solution on top. That is the typical thing what you have today, and that is 95% of all the IoT solutions are something like that. One device type from one vendor, and they are like then somehow connected to the internet. And then you have one service by this vendor, or maybe by someone else, that is like gathering all the information from this device. But that is actually not the thing of the future. That is the current thing. The interesting thing for a company like Bosch is like the future products are in the top, the IoT solutions, and the devices in the bottom, that is the products that we have today. And to combine these two things somehow, and there's this stuff too, and that's like the IoT middleware that is required to build all these products, these services. But the vision for the future is actually to have something that is bringing the different domains and the different vendors together. And so you have one big generic IoT platform that is like making all these things work together, so you can have cross-domain, cross-vendor IoT solutions. So devices from different vendors are working together, from different domains are working together, and they are all working perfectly together. So you have the IoT services on the top that are very easy to implement, because they are just on top of this generic IoT platform that is solving all the middleware problems. And it's very likely that this will be an IoT cloud in the future and not an enterprise software. So again, a service, and you have the IoT enabled devices. So the devices need to be enabled for the future, otherwise they will be hard to sell. And you need to have proper IoT services, which is just another business field that is really interesting for all the industrial manufacturers. So the expanding business in the IT market is actually that everyone wants to get to this generic IoT platform. Wants to produce that because it would be great, because it would produce a lot of money. So everyone who's somehow close to that, IT startups, system integrators, IT solution providers, IT framework vendors, cloud providers, device manufacturers, connectivity providers, internet platform providers, they all want to have and produce this generic IoT platform and want to have it successful. Because that is like one of the biggest challenges. You will only make money with such a generic IoT platform if you're something, at least, let's say, at least under the top 10. Otherwise, you will be in a niche and you really have to know what you're doing. And maybe you can, let's say, get some profit out of it, but it's very likely that it will be somehow eaten up by one of the bigger fishes. So there are two possible outcomes for this situation. There's one closed third-party IoT platform by one big company that is dominating all the entire world. The way we saw it, for example, in the operating system business, where there's just one operating system actually that is really like having 90% of the desktop market. It is changing now because of the technology changing, but on the desktop computers, it's still the situation. Or for example, also in the database area, where actually there's one big database that is like having a large market share. And something like that could happen as well here in the IoT platform area, that you have one big IoT platform provider that is then in a way has a monopoly, and is, of course, that's what everyone would do, maximizing their platform profit. But that means actually for all the companies that are providing the services on top or the devices below, that they are actually just getting a minimized profit because they are so depending on this platform provider. Another outcome, and that is hopefully what is happening, is that there is an open IoT platform that is, and then it means like there are several providers that use this open IoT platform technology and provide a service based on it. And so there is competition. That means actually if one is like asking for too much, then you can just go to the competitor, and so they're like keeping each other in check. And that means actually you have a lot of influence on this technology and on this market by two ways, because it's open. You can influence it directly by just like being part of it, and the other way is that you're actually influencing because you're just going to the competitor that is fulfilling your needs in the best way. That means all these companies providing IoT solutions and devices can maximize the profit, and we have a healthy market here. So that's the reason why we as Bosch decided that we want to have an open IoT platform with open source. The overall goal is, of course, to make our business successful, and the way we come to that is like summing up what I just said, is our assumption is that there will be 2 to 5 major IoT platforms in the next 5 to 7 years, and at least one of them will be open source. And the big industrial manufacturers, they will not be able to position proprietary platforms among the top 5, and the customers and partners would not even accept it, because they would dominate the corresponding domain too much. And on the other hand, they don't want to have the risk and dependency on a proprietary third-party platform, because that would bring them in a really bad position. And for example, in the automotive area, everyone knows what that means when you're depending too much on one supplier. So the conclusion is that actually the natural choice is an open platform strategy with open source. And for that, we chose Eclipse IoT, because that was the most promising approach at the point in time when we were thinking about it. And that was already 2 years ago, and it seems to be closer to that even now today. So when you look at, for example, what the Bosch IoT suite looks like and where we have open source technologies, you can see that at different parts, like for example here, Apache Camel, or here that's Eclipse Dito or Eclipse Hawkbit, Eclipse Lishan, Eclipse Hono, And Eclipse Smart Home might be something in the future. Maybe not for us, but maybe for others. And it's also like, so there are various things, various areas where it makes a lot of sense. And you also have, for example, here Vorto as well. And like under the hood, there's even much more open source technology in there. Because actually what our customers want and what they care about is the service primarily, and not what is how we actually made it possible that it worked. So the current members of the Eclipse IT working group, you can see them here. I think it's not that important to go through them, but there are many of them. And for example, just recently the Deutsche Bahn, the German railway company, they joined, and that's it's moving forward. Or for example, General Electric joined a while ago, and so our hope is that more and more people are joining that. And you can see that numbers are growing, but I think maybe like already people have told about that. And that this is not just an isolated thing, and just on one part of it, you can see that, for example, Cloud Foundry, it's the same situation. Like an open source technology that is just prospering, or now Kubernetes or Docker and all these things. All these technologies, there are billions going into them, and they're all open source. And that seems to be like the natural way to introduce a powerful new technology these days. And like companies are typically successful with it. When you look at the numbers, that's the way the most companies are going when they're doing this. But actually, you cannot do something like IoT alone. So it's really like that. You have to learn to collaborate with others. And so, as I said, we started to do that. Like, yeah, something. Now it's, I think, yeah, even like in 2014, that was the first time we stepped into it. We were quite new at that, and there were a lot of obstacles, and we didn't know how to do it, and we didn't know how to handle it. The people from the Eclipse helped us a lot, and so we are slowly progressing and making progress, and we're learning how to do these things in that way, and it's great. And we're seeing that it's a good way, and so we're putting more and more resources into that. And so for us, it's always that. So we realize that we have this problem inside Bosch, that actually it's so hard to do the open source stuff when you don't know about it. So you need something that is helping you to do that. And so we established this service inside Bosch that we're actually trying to help enable everyone that is interested inside Bosch, and that there's huge demand to do open source development, to actually get into this. And we have other areas, hopefully, like soon we will see some announcements that we are also getting more into open source in other areas. And so we're doing that more and more. It's actually prospering. So you don't see it because like a company like Bosch is in a way shy about these things. But I hope that we are getting more and more into the public, that there's a lot of things happening inside Bosch that is going towards open source. And so we are also establishing this for partners. So when partners want to collaborate with us more in the open source areas, we have this open source service as well for them to help them to get on speed in this area. So that is actually what I wanted to say about all this. And yeah, if you have questions, I hope you have, then let's start.
Thank you very much, Steffen. Yeah, anybody has a question for Steffen? No worries, Steffen, if you have no questions, because it was sort of, seems to be a habit in Finland, even tradition.
But I hope that anyway the presentation can be found in our website.
Yeah, I will collect all of them and I will put them on our website, yeah, on a wiki.
Maybe one kind of principal question is that when speaking about IoT platform and having Eclipse there, what kind of challenges or what are the biggest challenges in in-car development based on that kind of IoT principles or IoT world?
So there, I think there are several ones. One is for sure the anti-communication, and like if an I so you have the general situation that you always have with these new technologies. Currently, you see every automotive manufacturer trying to establish their own platform, and they will only succeed if they will have a common platform. Otherwise, something like Amazon IoT or Google IoT or Apple IoT or whatever, or Microsoft IoT or whatever, they will just have this closed platform. So, so that's one of the challenges. The other technical side, and I think that is the thing you're more referring to. The technical side is you need to have scalability. Currently, you have typically something like a few hundred or a few thousand devices. And when you want to have like a real working IoT platform for the automotive area, you have to calculate into the area of million devices, into hundreds of millions of devices. Not necessarily only cars, but things that are somehow connected to the cars. Like for example, toll stations or things like that. So many things will come together, or let's say a fuel station, if they're like for example, if I had that in Mongolia, the situation that you were driving several hundred of kilometers just to find out that the fuel station had no fuel. And so it's in different areas, in different cultures, you will see different demands, what needs to be connected to such an automotive IoT platform.
Yeah.
And all these different protocols, all these different communication needs. For example, you have an emergency call. This emergency call needs to get through. That is one single message maybe, and this one single message needs to get through. And then you have like millions of gigabytes of data that is flowing into a cloud, where it doesn't matter if some pieces of that are lost. So you have so many different. So the heterogeneity of the situation is a huge challenge. And facing all that needs like a special infrastructure. But the challenge for IoT overall is actually a very close challenge then to IoT in the automotive area. But in the automotive area, especially when it's moving towards automated driving, is becoming the pure bandwidth, for example, is challenging, because it's like an automated car actually is a driving sensor. And many of the data that the sensor is actually gathering, it would be very interesting for the driver, for the company that has produced the car, for the surrounding, for everyone, if that data can be used for other things. Of course, only if the driver and the owning party on whatever are fine with it. So that is like something else. The data challenges, like data security, private data protection, all these are also great challenges. And so you can extend that, like from the more you think about it, security is another big challenge. You don't want that someone can take over control over your car and just crash it. So there are huge challenges in all that, and it's very unlikely that one company alone will be able to face that. So it is the collaboration between all these companies and all these parties that are somehow involved in this is maybe the biggest challenge of it all.
Then a totally imaginary question: when do we see a Bosch car which is competing with Tesla?
So I don't think that Bosch has any intention to provide their own car. On the other hand, we love that, for example, there are many Bosch parts in the Tesla car. I think the percentage there has been I'm not sure if there has been a car where there have been more Bosch parts in it.
Yeah.
So I think we will not change our role to an OEM. We will stay at tier one. That's my very personal guess. But I don't see that this is changing. because it's a totally different business. If you're getting into the OEM role, all the other OEMs will not buy from you any longer.
Another question for Steffen? Okay, so thanks a lot, Steffen, for this great presentation. And so I would like to thank everybody who could join these 2 days presentations. And as I said, so I will collect all this presentation and I will put in our wiki. And then if you have any questions to any of these presenters, just let me know or just contact them directly if you know their address. And in any case, I will put you in touch with them. And I look forward for meeting you pretty soon. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.